When tribal killings forced my father out of his life as a successful businessman in Burundi and into a refugee camp in Congo, everything changed. His wealth, his status, everything he owned was taken away from him. The only thing he made sure he held on to was his dignity. Dad was a defender of the weak, humble but hardworking man. But most of all, he was someone that you could trust. When I was born 7 years later in that refugee camp, being identified as my father's son was really great. Neighbors were quick to feed me when I did not have food, and to defend me in terms of quarrels, even when I started the fight. At age 17, the war broke out in Congo, and I was displaced. This time without my family. After a frightening journey, eventually I made it into a refugee camp in Zambia. Life was very difficult. I felt like a complete nobody. Without friends, without family, in a place where even my 6 languages, the 6 languages that I spoke at that time, were not spoken in that place. I had to fight for myself or accept to be buried under the weight of despair. It took for a fellow refugee to trust me, being young and bold, to walk 2 hours from the refugee camp into the main road to go and sell his blanket to those traveling intercity. Well, I didn't know English. So overnight, I memorized my conversation for the next morning. And I was on the road. Luckily, I saw the blanket, and I brought more than what the guy expected. He did not just give me a generous commission, but he went around and told everyone, if you want to sell anything, just go to Innocent. Over time, though, I stopped trusting people. Being a refugee of 27 years, I was often asked by Westerners who came to visit the refugee camps to tell my story. And when I did, they responded with compassion and sometimes with tears. But when the same people did not keep in touch or gave me fake email addresses, I stopped believing that people would do what they say they will. But despite disappointment, I knew what was needed to be done in a refugee camp to unlock the potential of refugees. So, I started writing the vision for There Is Hope, an organization that strives for self-reliance of not only refugees, but also their host community in Malawi. Things began to change when I met Florissa, a young Italian woman who had heard about my vision and wanted to join and work with me. At our first meeting, Florissa told me her story, including painful, embarrassing, and awkward parts. I had never been trusted that much, and that gave me the reason to relearn trust. At that time, I was an asylum seeker and a full-time student in Malawi. I was so broke that I didn't even have money to buy toothpaste. On one hand, I was loaded with passion and vision. On the other, I was obsessed with the question, who would trust me? I realized that the trust of others will only make sense if I was willing to trust them in return. And I did. And I've seen a lot of change and impact of the work of There Is Hope. So why does Segal care about trust? Or why does trust matter to all of us? Well, I have an opinion, a strong one. And since my opinion has been validated by my wife, I'll say it without apologizing. Trust only happens when we overcome fear. If we allow fear to stop us from trusting, we deny ourselves the chance of ever achieving great things. So, trust.